Hello everyone and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday the 1st of December 2025. You know what? There's always something a wee bit poignant about having a weekly update on the 1st of the month and even more so on the 1st of December. Last month of the year, of course, and this year is absolutely zipped by and hasn't been the best year for our beloved club, I'll tell you that. For starters, it's Gary here again, of course, and thank you very much for taking the time to join me. You know what? Based on this last week here, I think it's quite clear that we're regressing. I don't want to underplay or downplay the significance of the injuries that we sustained during the international break there, in terms of our central defensive partnership, in terms of our creativity with Mikey Moore and such, just when he was starting to play well. For us, however, we're just getting worse as an entire squad, aren't we? You know, and it really reminds me of, like, if from a play perspective, from a skill perspective, from an application of the tactics perspective, from an attitude perspective, energy and such, if you do what you always did, you're going to get what you always got. And that's exactly us. Right now we're getting what we've always got, which is just this abject way of playing where it's very, very predictable and there is almost zero energy until the very last minute when there has to be energy and such. And I just don't understand that. It's been a rough week for us, I have to say. And I thought with Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell being gone, and I mean that's only a week since they're gone, and I thought there would have been some sort of bounce, some sort of lightening of the mood. Certainly, I think you could tell from the fan perspective, there's no one there now to protest against. So they're going to concentrate their efforts on supporting the team, which is absolutely great. But then the team is the team. I mean, it's the aftermath of what these guys left us, and notwithstanding the significant factor that we have to fill two very, very, very important positions at our club. Well, actually, you know what? Three. You've probably seen the news on the Rangers website earlier today that the incoming academy director, who was going to be starting in January, a fellow by the name of Jonathan Hunter Barrett, was coming from Wolves, and then they just mutually decided not to proceed with that. Obviously, a Kevin Thelwell appointment, and maybe he had a change of heart to say, well, if Kevin's not going to be there, I don't want to be there. Or if maybe Rangers put the kibosh on it and said, you know what, nothing this guy has done has worked out based on what we've seen on the pitch anyway, and maybe we don't want to proceed with that. I'm not 100% sure. Or maybe genuinely it was mutual, where they said, do you still want to do this? This is what it's going to look like. And then he just decided, you know what, I'll maybe stay where I am. Who knows? But what I do know is that none of this is a good news story. None of it is a good news story. Right, okay, I mean, part of it is we've got the rot, if you want to call it that. The rot has been identified within the club, and certainly on the playing and leadership side, and it's been identified and it's been cut out. But if anybody knows anything about rot or dampness or a leak or anything like that in your house, that's never the end of the story. There's still a whole bunch of cleanup stuff that has to get done behind the scenes. And knowing this from a pure business perspective, whenever anyone's let go in an organisation, I'm sure your experience has been somewhat similar to this. You need to find out what happened, like what they were working on, who they were working on, the things that they were progressing with, and what stage these things were at, and, you know, stop any particular bleeding that might have been occurring as a result of that. And maybe this academy director position was one of those things. Then you need to try and start to steady the ship with whomever remains. Find out, you know, I mean, because it's never the stuff that's going on in the surface is never really the stuff that's underneath the surface, in terms of if you think about an iceberg or something like that, where you're in a situation where you can only see the tip of it, and then when you actually go under the water, you're thinking, oh my God, look at this amount of stuff. He was doing this, he was doing that, he wasn't doing this, he wasn't doing that, and then you'll start to get, you know, opinions from people inside the organisation saying, well, I tried to tell him, and this is what happened, and this is where it's at, and things like that. So it's never the end of the story when these guys walk out of the building, and there's a lot of work to get done. So I don't know how attractive a position this is. I know it's very well compensated, but, you know, based on where we're at as a club, there's not that many folks out there. I think there's a lot of people out there with skills, a lot of people out there with the appropriate types and styles of skills that would be able to help us. But I don't know that there's a lot of people out there that can combine those skills with the desire to actually come and say, like, this is an absolute joke of a club right now, and it's stumbling from mess to mess to mess, and has done, by the way, for 10 years, 10 years plus. And we're now in a situation where I don't know how attractive we are to other people in the industry as to I mean, we've fired a manager after 123 days. We've fired a sporting director, whatever his title was, after 6 months. We fired a CEO after less than a year. That's not the signs of a stable club. There's no organisation in the world, I've said this before many times on this podcast, there's no organisation in the world that can sustain that type and style and level of change at the leadership side of the club here. So, to be honest with you folks, I'm just absolutely sick of this. I'm sick of chasing. I'm sick of always having these mathematics gymnastics going on in my head to go, it's only 5 points behind them and X amount of points behind that, and if we can do this and do that, we're simply just not good enough. And I think more so yesterday, not so much Thursday, really compounded that for me. And here's a thing, here's a kind of funny thing. I was actually, who was I talking to? There was someone I initially started talking to about this, saying, I think, do you know what it was? I think it was actually Brian Campbell last week. And I said, when I was younger, I used to watch football all the time. Anytime football was on, I would just put it on. I was interested in the teams, and there always seemed to be some sort of connection to Rangers, whether someone had played for Rangers at some point, or they were a transfer target, or there was a former manager or coach, or someone who was in the Scottish game, something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I was just into it. And now I very, very, very rarely watch anything other than Rangers. And I think what's happened is Rangers has put me off of football. Like, if I was to walk into Pin Bar, which is where we watch the games here in Calgary, and watch a Rangers game, see the crowd, see the atmosphere. Leo, my son, doesn't even go to the games anymore. He's just all angry. Like, and what I'm watching on the field isn't very entertaining. Like, why would I want to do that? And I'm like, but it's Rangers. And he just doesn't get it. And I understand, because he's 16. He hasn't seen any of the good times, really. So I think that Rangers has affected my love of the game of football. I'm going to have to pay more attention to that as I go forward. Like, I do have games on in the background if I'm working, just purely for a wee bit of background noise, but I literally don't care about any other team. I don't care about any other league. I don't care about any other games and such. And I would love to get my love back for the game, and it really rests on Rangers to be able to provide some sort of inspiration to do that. Anyway, the Scottish Cup draw was made yesterday, and we were drawing, as you probably know now, to Annan Athletic. And I think, you know what, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I think that's a winnable game for us. Honestly, I do. And that's going to be mid next month, either the 17th or the 18th. And it's just one of these draws. I was actually just hoping to get that mob from the East End at Ibrox and just pap them out, make sure they're not going to win the treble, and then move on from there. But Annan Athletic is who it's going to be, and we'll do the very best that we can. In terms of the games, first game, of course, was Thursday's 1-1 draw with Braga at Ibrox, and it started all right. It started not too bad, I thought, and what I thought was really interesting was he started with Gassama on the right, which was a really pleasant change for me to see him actually do some damage out there. And I think it seemed to catch Braga by surprise there. And then, from about around, what would that be, like the 10th, 12th minute, something like that, we were just conceding some gifts. And Super Jack Butland stood up really, really well with some great saves at that. The linesman on, what would that be, Gassama's side, gave a couple of fouls away that the ref just agreed with. It were just absolutely beyond, let them away with some fouls, actually, I should say. And then we had our first shot around about 34, 35 minutes from Danilo, and the pass was just a wee tiny bit behind him. It could have done with a wee bit more weight so that it could have ran onto that, which was a wee bit unfortunate, but it was actually pretty good from that point on. I thought we did have a penalty shout when Gassama was levelled, and absolutely nothing from this referee was given, which was just about, what we're coming to expect, certainly from the ref and this near side linesman from that first half. But we did finish the first half strongly, and then we got a penalty. And it's actually ironic, this penalty, wasn't it? Because no one, like the fans, the players, no one shouted for it at all. Usually, if the ball goes anywhere near a guy's chest or shoulder or anything like that, somebody's shouting for a penalty. That's just the culture in the game these days. Nothing happened, and then all of a sudden the commentator says, so they're actually checking for a handball. And of course, the commentator was my pal Ellen Ellard, who did a great job commentating again. And then we got the penalty, and it was a penalty. It was a clear handball, like off his elbow, and Tav put it away. And then they get a red card for, this is getting to it's a man's game, I want to say, and it's certainly from the Rangers teams that I watch and pay close attention to. It wasn't a headbutt. The two heads come together. He motions a wee bit forward. Raskin doesn't go down like he's been hit by a bag of potatoes, but he still goes down anyway. And then we just go absolutely into our shell after they go a man down. It's almost like we panicked. It's almost like the whole entire squad went, oh shit, like what happens now? What do we do? And the worst thing that could have happened for us, I think, honestly, was them going down to 10 men. And then we're so creative in the goals that we lose. I mean, I'll give that to the Rangers squad, that we have an absolute calamity, another calamity for Giga for the equaliser. He goes for the header, doesn't really get the header, takes it away from Tav. Their guy kind of comes in and just bundles it in. I have zero clue what he was trying to do. But the interesting thing was that afterwards they showed that it should have been a corner. It all came from a throw-in at their side and their right-hand side, and it should have been a corner because the ball was very clearly out, and we might not have lost that goal as a result. Or Giga would have done something equally as calamitous, and we would have still been one each at that point anyway. Who knows with that guy? Oh boy, man, he hasn't been the best loan signing for us, I have to say. And then it just got bad, didn't it, towards the end of the game. We rode the luck a wee bit, I think. Honestly, I think we if anybody was going to be scoring the winning goal, it wasn't going to be Rangers on that night. I could just feel it, And then we had Diamandi sent off at the end, the second red card in European competition, and it was deserved. So it just always a wee bit awful. And positives, we got our first point, which is financially, beneficial for the club. Of course, we did have a really strong end to the first half. I thought actually probably strongish last half hour of the first half there, and some good quality in there. Decent start to the second, and I think overall in terms of positivity, it's a fair result, and I haven't complained about any of the results in Europe this season at all, including back to Russell Martin's time, because I honestly think we've literally got everything that we've deserved out of every single European game. There hasn't been a game where you're like, oh boy, if that hadn't happened, if this had went that way, or we'd had, had a cooler head and a better finish or whatever it was. I don't have any of those feelings. Actually, I don't have any of those feelings for any Rangers games, not just in European competition for the season. In terms of negatives, Jiga's defending, do you want to call it that? Maybe we do that in inverted commas for their equaliser. We didn't create a lot of chances, or we actually just don't look like we're capable of scoring goals, which is incredible with the amount of money that we've spent on attacking options for this season. It's just so below standard. It's not even funny, and it's really, really difficult to see where the goals are going to come from, because our midfielders aren't scoring, obviously, and we're relying on James Tavernier again to be scoring. And I don't know. In terms of the stats, it says on the Rangers site, it said we'd 48% possession, 9 shots with 6 on target. I don't recall 6, but if they say it's 6, it was 6. They had 6 shots with 5 on target. So I take that for what it is. In terms of the referee, normally this is a point where I get to compliment the referees and say how much of a breath of fresh air they are in terms of the dirge that we get from the Scottish ones. But no way, no, this guy, he gave us absolutely nothing in the first half, and he did what he had to do for a penalty. Fair play, and fair enough on both of the red cards. I think he had to do what he did, and he was okay in the second half. He wasn't having an influence on the play. The key challenge I have here is that we don't have that many creative players, and Gassama is the only signing of the summer that looks like, we're in good shape. As I said earlier, Mikey Moore was coming on to a bit of a game there. It's very obvious he's going to be a really good player in his future, and Gassama's been the shining light, someone that you look to say something can happen with this guy being on there. Their left, what would that be? Their left back and their left midfielder, it was basically a free-for-all. And as I've said before, someone's going to get injured as a result of people letting play go, people letting that sort of thing go. And they're there to protect the players, these referees, and they didn't do that. So he's going to get a 5 out of 10 from me on that one. Second game, this one will be quick. The second game was yesterday's 0-0. I was going to say 0-0 and be all Canadian there. Yesterday's 0-0. What's the best way to call it? Snooze fest. It was an absolute snooze fest, and we all seen it. Like if you actually watched the game, that there wasn't a lot to talk about. There was some comedy defending that I remember running about midway through the second half that could have easily been a goal, but thankfully it wasn't. I think we had our first shot. Was it maybe the first half, actually? I think maybe we had our first shot run about that time, very late on, similar to the Braga game. So if you don't shoot, you're not going to score. I mean, that's the basic simplistics of the game. And honestly, I didn't feel like we were going to lose. It wasn't like they had chance after chance, and you're kind of a wee bit shell shocked and stunned at this team of upstarts from the lower divisions that just get promoted this season. They're coming and having a go. It didn't look like we were going to lose, but it certainly didn't look like we were going to win either. And for me, honestly, I mentioned it briefly in the intro there. It's about urgency and it's about effort. And it doesn't look like the current Rangers squad have any of those traits. The lethargy. Do you know what? I was actually talking to Andy, my brother-in-law, in the car on the way home from the game yesterday. And they were at the Livingston game. Him and Debbie, my sister, were at the Livingston game live last week. And so the Campbells as well, or certainly Brian Campbell was there, I think. And the whole family were there at the Braga game. And what Andy had said was that when you're at the game, you actually get to see a lot more of the game. You don't get to see what the director decides to show you on camera. And you started to get a real appreciation for the jogging that our players do when they're not on the ball, when they lose the ball. Even Maurice Ross commented on it yesterday on Rangers TV. He says Rangers just lost the ball. There's 4 guys there jogging when they should be bursting a gut. If you work harder, I've said this before, if we work harder than any other team that we play, we will win the majority of the games that we play because we have better skilled players there. I know it's difficult to comprehend that with some of the signings that we made in the summer, but they're still better than the majority of the other football teams in Scotland. And we don't have a desire, we don't have an urgency. At the end of the game, when we're kind of pushing, then they'll start to run over quickly and take a throw in or a bye kick or a free kick or whatever it looks like. But where is that in the whole game? Like, you need to earn the right to win the game, and we're just not. And by the way, even the NARSA chat was completely quiet yesterday. I think there was a couple of comments, and that was about it, because we're all fed up. You could see how many empty seats there were yesterday, and that was for us going for 5 in a row in the league there. It was something to keep a bit of momentum and a little bit of hope that Danny Rule has got what he needs to be able to limp away to the January window and hopefully get some experience into the squad. But it's back to the same old story. So in terms of the positives, we got the game finished. That was a positive. That we got a point, I guess. No more injuries that I could tell. We're no further behind Hearts in the chase for what will ultimately become the chase for second place. And I'm just clutching at straws here, folks. In terms of negatives, if you look at this from a more macro view, we struggled to beat Livingston. I thought we're kind of fortunate to get a draw against Braga after the way that we limped towards the end of the game, and then we were semi-fortunate to get a draw against Falkirk. Earned results, but we're not doing enough to win these games, and we're obviously, very obviously regressing again. And I think Danny Rule now is at 6 weeks in, and he's really saying, man, this is what I've got. And it's going to be a long month in December. I mentioned this last week that we have a lot of games. We have 7 games in December, and then we follow that up immediately with the Old Firm game at Sharkhead, and that's going to be, of the 8 games, including the Old Firm game, that's going to be, 5 away and 3 at home. And you don't trust this squad right now. But we had very winnable games at home to give ourselves a bounce going into December, and we didn't win one of them. So we're further behind than we should be. In terms of the stats, 60% possession, 9 shots, 4 on target versus 3 shots with 2 on target. In terms of the referee watch, Stephen McLean, I didn't think did much wrong. He wasn't really involved too much or super annoying or anything like that. So he'll get a 7 out of 10 for that one. Next games, we have 2 this week, and both of them are in the league. Away to Dundee United on Wednesday, the 3rd of December, and that's a 2:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff, 7:45 in the UK. And then we're away to Kilmarnock. And here's an interesting, I can't remember the last time we had a 1 o'clock kickoff. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 o'clock in Calgary here, kick-off on a Saturday. So we have that for the Kilmarnock game. We're away to Kilmarnock in the league on Saturday, the 6th of December, and that is an 8 p.m. UK kick-off time. I don't know. Obviously, watch both games and hope for the best, but based on the current conference levels, based on the current application of what it is they're trying to do, and based on the availability of the players, this is going to be a long week, folks, I imagine. And then we'll just need to see what happens. The good thing is that Hearts are continuing their stumble, so we'll just have an opportunity. I imagine that mob will be top of the league by the end of this week, and we'll see if we're any closer to second place or not. Who knows, based on what we've been seeing. Let's get a wee bit more positive, shall we? From a shout-outs perspective for this week, I want to start by wishing a very happy birthday to NARSA President Alan McWatt's wonderful daughter, Mia, who celebrates her birthday today. I just noticed that on a Facebook notification on my phone, literally seconds before I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, I should say, to start recording. And it's great to be able to do that for Mia. I know that Mia does tune in now and again, so hopefully she does today. Mia, hopefully you have an absolutely wonderful day today and you get absolutely spoiled rotten by your parents and your brother. Have a wonderful day. Many, many happy returns. And also on the birthday front, I would like to wish an early birthday to the Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary Vice President Alec Liddell, who is celebrating his birthday tomorrow, I believe it is. And that's the 2nd of December, of course. And what Alec actually decided to do was pre-celebrate his birthday by having a lie-in yesterday and opening the pub about 35 seconds before the game started. He had the key in the folder from last week. I trusted him. I got down there at 6:59 a.m. and the place is in darkness. And I was thinking, oh no, what happened? Then somebody opens the door. The lights weren't even on at that point, and we got it put on. I think we only missed about maybe about 50 seconds of the game or something like that. But I guess when you've earned the right to get to the age that Alex is at, then you're in a situation where you can have a wee lie-in when you feel like it. But many happy returns to you also, Alec, for your birthday tomorrow. And I did mention briefly earlier the Ellen Ellard interview. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, please go to my YouTube channel, Gary Gillen Coaching, and check it out then. I did ask the comms guys to put it out on the NARSA network, but I got a big massive blank, a big rubber ear on that one, so I thought it was kind of poignant. She does a lot of commentating on her European games. I think she's great, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do go check it out. It was a great interview, really nice lassie, doing some great things in the commentating space, and she's going to be destined for big things, and I really enjoyed getting to know her a wee bit. Congratulations to Edmiston House, who won 2 awards at the Best Bar None Scotland Awards last week. They won a gold award, which I have no idea what that means, but it sounds kind of good if you're thinking about Olympic medal terms, and then an award for sustainability as well, which is great. Congratulations to them. Just a reminder that Amanda and Jason Jr. Ross are running the London Marathon. That's in like 5 months now, eh? So, and that's on behalf of the Royal British Legion. I'll leave the link on the show notes as always, and you can go and donate there if you can. And I did mention last week that David Edgar, CJ Novo and Stevie Clifford are doing a live show at Edmiston House on the 9th of January alongside Mark Haitley. And I was going to have David on. My plan was to have David on, then CJ on, then Stevie on, just to give them a wee bit of a platform to talk about the work that they're doing in the Ranger space, and then also to do a bit of a plug for the show. I was hoping to have David on this week, and we agreed just before recording that we would actually have that done next week. So the invite is already in the calendar. It's absolutely guaranteed to be happening next week, all things being well. So you're just kind of stuck with me today. In terms of the convention update, or the NARSA 2026, I really should stop saying convention, shouldn't I? But that is 191 days and 27 weeks until we descend upon Nashville and do what we're going to do down there. That's, of course, June the 11th to the 14th. And just a reminder, it's World Cup opening weekend that weekend, and the draw for the World Cup is coming up this Friday. So on next week's pod, we'll be able to give you a wee bit more of a semblance of understanding of if Scotland are playing in those first 4 days, and if so, what timing, and then just kind of work around about that and figure that part out. So we'll know a wee bit more on Friday. That's going to be exciting to kind of really start to shape up the event. and such. And as you will probably know, the hotel is out for booking. I did get some feedback that the website wasn't really behaving the way it was supposed to be behaving, and we obviously have our $199 for the core days of the convention, which is 11th, 12th, 13th, and then we have 3 days before and 3 days after based on availability. But for some reason on the website, the 3 days before and 3 days after wasn't working. But Alan got on the case and talked with the hotel, and we have that sorted now. So if you have any hassles or challenges with the hotel, please do reach out to Brian Campbell or Alan McWatt or myself, of course, and they will get that information into the right hands and get done what needs to get done. What I would like to do as we go forward here is give you a wee bit of an update in terms of how the bookings are going, just to create a wee bit of urgency. Of course, we're looking to try and sell this out as quickly as we can, and then we will see what that looks like. So once we know what the World Cup schedule is, we'll then be able to finalise the itinerary as we are going forward. We do have a bit of a rough overview of what that can look like for Destination NARSA 2026, and we'll see what that looks like. Other business, we do have a meeting, I think it's actually going to be early afternoon or maybe mid-afternoon today, to discuss further 2026 planning, marketing, sponsorship and such. I've mentioned before a number of times, if you're ever interested in sponsoring this podcast, for example, or putting some sponsorship collateral on the NARSA website or our socials, we would be happy to provide you with our numbers in terms of the volume of hits and views and likes and such, and see whether that's going to be worth your money or not. I would say guaranteed, absolutely it is, to sponsor this podcast, so we can cover the costs and then some, and then take it from there. But you'll see a wee bit more on the marketing side over the month of December here as we progress. From a communication perspective, there was no Gers guide when I started recording. I'm recording a wee bit earlier this morning because I had a cancellation on another thing. So right now it's 9:43 a.m. my time. So no Gers guide was there, but I would imagine today there is maybe going to be an interview or so from yesterday's game. Tomorrow there will be a loan review and probably the presser for Wednesday's game against Dundee United. Thursday, maybe not a whole lot. Friday will be the presser for the Saturday game against Kilmarnock, I imagine. Saturday will be the game in and of itself, and then I'm not sure what's happening on Sunday. I think that the women's team are back in action on Sunday. Forgive me, I didn't look at the fixtures. I usually get that information from the Gers guide. And speaking of the women's team, of course, they were on international duty, so there was no women's game this past week there. But one wee interesting tidbit, I thought, in terms of the folks that get the privilege and opportunity to go to Ibrox, was that Rangers last week had announced that they had begun a wide-ranging feasibility study that will help shape the future of Ibrox and identify immediate ways to improve the matchday experience for supporters. I thought that was something they would be doing each and every day, but this, I'm assuming they've maybe got a consultant organisation to come in and really start to look at this. The article goes on to say the work is designed to give the club a clear understanding of what is possible across the full stadium campus in the years ahead. The study will look closely at the stadium's current setup, overall infrastructure, as well as assessing capacity needs and options for future expansion. It will also explore how we can improve matchday life for fans, from bar and social spaces to general facilities across the stadium and surrounding areas. This is an opportunity that the club need to explore. The capacity has been a thing, notwithstanding, of course, people paying for tickets and then not using them because of the way the current squad is and our complete lack of success and lack of even looking like we're going to have success. But that when things are going well, and it might just take a couple of key signings to give us an opportunity to start to compete properly again, there is typically an abundance of people on the waiting list for season tickets, and that's money that's left on the table, as they say, and the club are probably not interested in doing that. So whether they're going to, at one point they were talking about lowering the pitch to create more capacity for additional seats around about pitch side and such, but who knows, or maybe there's infilling the corners around the main stand or whatnot. Who knows what that's going to look like, but good that they're doing that. And there's also, it's a reminder that this is a business, and they're looking at the business to be able to satisfy the customers and patrons and such like that. Just a quick reminder again, from a communication perspective, if you could really go and make an effort to I make it sound like an effort, it's not, like and subscribe our YouTube channel. That would be very, very much appreciated. That helps us with our marketing and sponsorship. And if you haven't done it already, wherever you listen to this podcast, whether it's on Spotify or Apple or, what would that be, Amazon Prime or anything like that, please go and like it and give us a rating when you're there, so that helps us with a wee bit more visibility on those channels too. That would be very, very much appreciated. Quick reminder that on the 19th of January, there is an Era's Captain's Night with Barry Ferguson and special guests, and that's going to be at Edmiston House. You can go to the Edmiston House website and check that out. Okay, my friends, that will do it. It's a decidedly shorter podcast this week because we didn't have the Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart thing to discuss and such. So back to the regular half-ish hour stuff. But thank you very much, as always, my friends, for taking the time to tune in. I really, really do appreciate it. And please do share it with someone that you think might enjoy it. And until next week, very, very big week for us in terms of games coming thick and fast. We have an opportunity to continue to pursue second spot here, I guess. I don't want to sound defeatist, but this team has got me kind of feeling that way right now. Let's go for 2 wins. Let's really put the effort in and bust our arses for 2 wins, Rangers here. Come on. Until next week, please do take care of yourselves and we'll chat then. Follow.